Welcome to Brewing Success, where growth is the mission, change is the reward, and progress is the goal. I am your host, Andrea Gebhardt. I'm a former educator turned passionate entrepreneur whose desire to create impact has never wavered. I have spent the last decade teaching, mentoring, and coaching people on how to create success in their lives and businesses with proven strategies and systems that not only bring about change, but big results. When it comes down to it, teaching is my specialty, leadership is my jam, and inspiring you to live a bigger, fuller life is what I'm all about. This podcast will give you the knowledge and tools you need to brew success in almost any area of your life. You're going to walk away each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to step outside your comfort zone and into the next level of who you're meant to be. Now let's get into today's episode. I am so excited. I'm really excited about this episode. We get to have a really fun conversation. We're going to be talking about coachability today. And coachability is one of those qualities that almost everyone believes that they have. Like most people, if you ask them, are you coachable? They'd be like, yeah, of course I'm coachable. And almost everyone actually, honestly, really has more room to grow in that department than they realize, yours truly included. And it's not a criticism. It's actually great news because coachability is not a fixed trait you either possess or you don't. It's a skill. It's a practice, something you can develop, deepen, and genuinely get better at. And we're going to work on that starting today. One of the things when people come to me and they're like, well, I want to be a part of your team. What does it take to work with you? And I'm like, oh my gosh, 3 things. Can you answer these questions? Number 1, are you coachable? I start there. And they're like, well, yeah, of course. I was like, well, tell me what that looks like to you. And most times people stop dead in their tracks and don't even know what to say. They don't even know how to respond. But there's 3 things that I always look for in people who I am mentoring, want to partner with, want to work with. When they come to me, it's one of the questions I ask, like, are you committed? Are you dedicated? Are you coachable? Those 3 things really do matter to me because a lack of dedication, a lack of commitment, and a lack of coachability is going to lead you away from success, honestly. So I want to ask you something, you sitting right there in your car, listening to this, maybe while you're doing something else. I want to ask you something. And I promise this is a judgment-free zone, just you and me, and a really honest question. I want you to think about the last time someone gave you feedback. A mentor, a manager, a colleague, a partner, a friend, someone who saw something in you or your work, and maybe they offered a perspective that was, let us say, not entirely like a standing ovation. What did you do with it? And I don't mean like, what did you say in the moment? We all have that gracious nod totally perfected by now. I mean, what actually happened afterward? Did you sit with it? Did you let it do its work? Did anything change as a result of it? Again, judgment-free zone here. Or did it sort of land and then quietly dissolve? You're like, well, whatever. It doesn't even matter what you think or what you say because of whatever. Did a little voice in the back of your head start making its case for why the feedback was not entirely accurate? Well, they weren't paying attention. They didn't hear the little thing. They don't understand the context. They don't know, blah, 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 like this little voice. Or that, like it's not entirely fair or not something you really needed to prioritize right now. If you're even smiling a little bit right now, you are in the right place because what I just described is the entirely human, completely understandable, very common experience of receiving feedback and not quite letting it all the way in. And today we're going to talk about that, not to make you feel bad about it, but to help you get genuinely better at one of the most valuable skills a growing person can develop. Welcome to Brewing Success, you guys. I'm your host, Andrea Gebhardt, and today we are talking about coachability, what it actually is, why it matters more than most people realize, and how to develop more of it in a way that feels like less of a personal overhaul and more like a really useful upgrade. So let's get into it. Here is something that might surprise you. Taking direction and being genuinely coachable are not the same thing. They look identical from the outside. Both involve receiving an instruction and doing something with it. But the difference in what happens on the inside is significant. Taking direction means executing the instruction. Go put this box over there. That is direction. You hear it, you do it, and when the instruction stops, the behavior stops with it. Being coachable, however, means something richer. It means internalizing the principle behind the instruction, understanding why it matters, and carrying it forward with genuine ownership rather than waiting to be reminded. And to me, when I'm working on developing people, when I am mentoring others in sales and in business, coachability to me means the ability to take what is being taught, take what is being coached, and just like I said, internalizing it, putting it into action, learning from it, refining because of it, and allowing it to become a part of how you operate. That is coachability. What drives me absolutely crazy is when someone comes to you for guidance, for advice, for direction, for systems, for coaching, for help, and you coach, and then you see them out there doing the complete opposite. You see them out there not even actually putting it into action. That means you're not coachable, and that can be very frustrating. I get very frustrated by that, by the way. So if you think about like an example here, like let's just say you have two team members who get the same feedback. Your follow-up with, this is the feedback that you're going to give, right? The follow-up with your clients needs to be more consistent. The first team member starts following up more regularly for a few weeks, then gradually drifts back to the old pattern once the direct attention fades. The second one follows up more consistently and then asks, what does consistent actually look like in terms of timing? And then that team member builds a simple system around it and is still running it 6 months later without anyone reminding them. Both heard the same feedback, which was your follow-up with client needs to be more consistent. One took direction. The other was coachable. And those two trajectories look very different at the end of a year. So here are the 3 markers of genuine coachability. Genuine coachability has 3 markers that are worth knowing, not as a checklist to grade yourself on, but more as a useful map for understanding where your own growth edge might be. So the first is receptivity, the genuine openness to hear feedback without your immediate internal defense attorney showing up to poke holes in the case. Receptivity does not mean accepting every piece of feedback as gospel. It means being willing to actually consider it before deciding what to do with it. So your ability to receive it. A lot of times when feedback is given, and think about it, I really want to think of this, especially as parents, when you have kids who are in sports. And one of the last things we want to do as parents is be bleacher coaches, right? Where we sit on the bleachers, we watch them perform, we watch them compete, we watch them play. And then we get in the car and then we're like, oh my gosh, so your swing, so your pirouette, so your stroke, so your whatever your stride, whatever it might have been. We go into this place of like trying to coach them, right? And again, that's not what we should be doing as parents. That's what their coaches do. We're just, what did you love the best? What went really well? What would you do differently next time? How do you feel about your performance? And you just have a conversation because they don't want you to be their coach. They just want you to be their supporter. But I think about coachability now is if you were to, oh my gosh, like let's say your kid's a pitcher. My boys played baseball for a while, and your kid gets in the car and you're just like, oh my gosh, you pitched really well. But I started to notice that when you blah, 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 or your pitching seemed a bit off and you start to bring up feedback and I was tired. Well, my arm hurt. Well, blah, blah, blah. Like that immediate defensiveness. That's when we know they're not ready to receive it. And that's a lot of times we right off the get-go from the very beginning realize that people are not coachable. The second is reflection, which is the practice of sitting with feedback long enough to ask, what is true in this? Even when the delivery wasn't perfect. Oh my gosh, how many of us have received feedback where the delivery was crap, where the tone, the words that were used, maybe the timing just wasn't like really great. And even when the timing was inconvenient, right? Even when the relationship is complicated, reflection is the bridge between hearing feedback and using it. And it's a step that most of us skip in our rush to either accept or dismiss what we've just heard. So reflecting, allowing yourself to sit with it. And then the third is application. So these are the 3 markers of coachability. Okay, we have receptivity, being able to receive it without your defense attorney showing up. reflection, the ability to sit with it long enough to ask what is true in this, and application is the third, which is the actual behavioral shift that follows genuine reflection. This is where coachability actually becomes visible, not in what we say when feedback arrives, but in what we do differently afterwards. So if you've ever coached a kid before, I can think back to cheerleading coaching or coaching t-ball or coaching swim. When you give the feedback and you make the adjustments, does the kid or does the person that you're mentoring, when you give the feedback, when you give the instructions, when you provide the coaching, do they automatically implement it and make those immediate adjustments or changes? Do they actually apply what you just shared with them? That is a big marker of coachability. And here's the encouraging part. Application doesn't have to be dramatic. Even a small, consistent change made in response to feedback is coachability in action, and that's what it looks like when it's working. Coachability is a practice you develop through the repeated, genuinely rewarding choice to receive what is offered, reflect on what is true, and apply what is useful. And the challenge here really is just that feedback sometimes is hard to hear and it's hard to receive. Not because we're fragile or defensive by nature, but because we're human. And when someone offers a perspective on our work or our behavior, it can land right in the place where what I did and who I am have not quite been separated in our own minds. And when that happens, feedback about a behavior can feel like an attack, often landing in the insult pond and in an attack on our intelligence and our effort. It can feel like an attack. That experience is not a character flaw, it's a nervous system response. And understanding it, recognizing it when it shows up, is actually the first step toward getting better at managing it. You can't redirect something you have not noticed, right? So here's a reframe that will help. And I want you to sit with it because it genuinely changes how feedback feels when it lands and where it lands. Feedback is information, full stop. Not a verdict. Not a personal critique, not evidence that someone does not believe in you. It is just information, data about how your current approach is landing, what is working, what has room to grow, and what blind spots might be limiting you in ways you genuinely can't see from your own perspective. And here's the thing about blind spots. They require another set of eyes. By definition, you cannot see them from where you're standing. And the person who offers you feedback, especially the honest, specific, well-intentioned kind, is handing you a map of terrain you didn't know existed. This is not an attack, it's a gift. And sometimes wrapped in imperfect packaging, but a gift nonetheless. So I'll give another example here of where a leader, how many of us leaders have gotten feedback, right? One time, let me just, can I share a real scenario with you? I was kind of going to go with like a more of a generic one, but one time I had a team member who accomplished a new milestone, and she hit these big numbers in sales, and it was really amazing and really incredible. And I congratulated her in front of our entire team. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing! I'm so proud of you! Way to go! I almost like beat you." And I said that because like we do a lot of like friendly competition on the team, and we like have a lot of fun and we rally each other. And I said that, and we had a good little laugh, and the team was like all excited. And then literally like 2 days later, she texts me and she's like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. What's up?" And she was like, "Can I call you right now?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so we get on the phone, and she proceeds to tell me that although she appreciated the recognition, when I said I almost beat you, like I was almost there, like you beat me, almost caught you kind of a thing is what I think I said. "Oh, I almost caught you, like way to go." She was like, "It made me feel like I'm in competition with you, and I don't feel like I should be in competition with you." And I have to tell you right now that I had to bite my lip because I immediately want to be like, "Oh my gosh, that's not what I meant." And I wanted to defend what I said and what I did because it wasn't my intent, but my intent doesn't matter because what I said hurt somebody else's feelings, made them feel a certain kind of way. They had a reaction. And so, she's like, I gave it 48 hours to make sure that I really wanted to address this. Was I really upset? And I'm still pretty upset about it. And I said, okay, I am sorry. I'm sorry that I said that. I should not have said that. Not I probably shouldn't have said that. I said I shouldn't have said that. You are right. And that I just want you to know that my intention wasn't to make you feel that way. I just thought it was really awesome and fun and exciting. We do a lot of friendly competition, but nonetheless, I'm sorry for my words, and I will be so much more mindful about that. What happened was the other part of me, unintentionally, in a moment of recognition and praise, threw myself in the arena, and it was completely unnecessary. So here she is giving me this feedback. And was I receptive to it? Yes, I was. Did I have to bite my lip? Yes, I did, because that's a part of being human and growth, right? So there's that. So I absolutely received it. And then I sat with it. What is true? Well, what is true is that what I said hurt her feelings, and there's potential for that to happen later on. And it just made me really mindful of how I go about doing that. I never would want anyone on my team to feel like they're in direct competition with me. It's not what it's about. It's not what we're doing. And so it really changed the way that I move in conversation, and it really changes the way that I acknowledge the success of other people. And it really made me mindful of, sometimes as leaders, especially around our teams, we can get really comfortable and we can forget sometimes how something might come across. And it's just that level of mindfulness, right? And then there's that third level of application, the actual behavioral shift that took place and how I changed my behavior to not have something like this occur again. And so even though I was like, oh my gosh, that's not what I meant. I wanted that defense attorney. Dude, she tried to show up. She did. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't anything. It was feedback. It was information, and it helped me learn. It helped me grow. And I honestly believed it. And even though it was an uncomfortable conversation, it was really hard. Growth is uncomfortable, and growth is really hard. And a big part of developing into the leader that you are going to need to be able to fulfill the dream, the purpose, the calling that's over your life, you're going to have to run into situations and circumstances. These little tests, are you really coachable? Are you really capable? These are the lessons that kind of come along that really refine what we do so that we can move along and make progress and growth. So again, feedback, that was information. It wasn't an attack, it was information. And here's the thing that I want you to consider and really think about. And one more thing really we're saying here is because this one really does trip up even the most well-intentioned people, the value of feedback is not determined by the quality of its delivery. We've all received feedback that was clumsily worded, poorly timed, or delivered by someone whose own house was not entirely in order. And it's very tempting and completely understandable, honestly, to dismiss the message because the messenger or the method left something to be desired. But here is the invitation. What if you separated the packaging, aka the delivery, from the content, aka the feedback? A diamond doesn't stop being a diamond because it arrived in a crumpled bag. Truth does not stop being useful because it was delivered without grace. The practice of asking yourself, even when the feedback stings a little, is there something here worth keeping? That's the golden nugget. That's the reflexive thought that delivers opportunity for growth. That practice is one of the highest leverage coachability habits that you can actually develop. Feedback isn't an attack on who you are. It's an invitation to who you're becoming. And the most successful people are the ones who keep saying yes to that invitation. I mean, I constantly seek out feedback. What did you think? What did you like? What did you love? What could have been better? What could have this and what could have been that? And sometimes people jump in with feedback. I'm like, oh, well, okay. All right. And then I think about it for next time. And I really think about all the things that were delivered and what if this is true? What if this is useful? This is information, an invitation for me to get better. If we could just look at feedback like that, we would advance and progress so much faster than we actually are. So let's talk about coachability over different areas of your life, because believe it or not, who you are and how you react is often very conditional on the environment. You might be really coachable at work, but not so much coachable at home. You might be really coachable when your friends come to you to give feedback, but when your kids are giving you feedback, like you're not coachable at all to that. In a professional context, coachability is one of the most visible accelerators of growth available. The team member who receives feedback with genuine openness, who asks follow-up questions, makes adjustment, and comes back demonstrably different, earns trust faster, gets more opportunity, and develops skills at a pace that the equally talented but more defended colleagues simply cannot match. Not because they're smarter, but because they're more teachable. As a leader being mentored, here's a funny thing that happens as people grow in their careers. The more successful they become, the fewer people become comfortable giving them honest feedback. The team gets a little more careful. The peers get a little bit more diplomatic. And the leader who does not actively create conditions for honest input can find themselves operating in a gradually thickening bubble of validation, which feels great right up until it doesn't. The leaders who continue growing beyond their early success are almost always the ones who deliberately keep seeking out the people who will tell them the truth, who ask their mentor uncomfortable questions, who build enough safety in their team that honest feedback can actually surface. Coachability does not retire when you get successful. If anything, it becomes even more important because the stakes are higher and the feedback gets rarer. And in your personal relationships, this one is perhaps the most personal and the most worth talking about because coachability doesn't clock out when the workday ends. Some of the most important feedback we ever receive come from the people who are closest to us. And some of the most important growth we ever do happens when we're genuinely willing to hear it. The beautiful and slightly inconvenient truth is that the people who love us the most often see our blind spots more clearly. And they're usually hoping more than anything that we will let what they see actually reach us. So here are 3 simple ways to build your coachability muscle. Number 1, practice the pause. When somebody gives you feedback, especially feedback that maybe catches you off guard or stings a little, give yourself 1 breath before you respond. Not a dramatic pause, just a moment. And in that moment, you create space between the feedback landing and your response to it. And in that space, you have a choice: the automatic response or the intentional one. The pause is where that choice lives. Practice it because it will, I promise you, get easier over time. Number 2, the curious question. After the pause, try replacing the instinct to explain or defend with a question that comes from genuine curiosity. Something like, can you tell me more about what you observed? Can you tell me more about, what you thought? Or what would it look like if I were doing it differently? Or what would it sound like if I were to have said it differently? These questions signal that you are treating the feedback as information worth understanding, and the answers almost always contain something more useful than the original feedback alone. People open up when they feel that their perspective is genuinely welcome, and what they share when they open up is often exactly what you needed to hear. And then part 3, the follow-through loop. This one right here is a game changer, and almost no one does it. It's actually really sad. So after you've reflected on a piece of feedback and made any adjustments that it warranted, go back to the person who offered it and tell them what you did with it. Hey, so I took what you said. Here's how I put it into place, or here's how I put it in action, or here's how it's changed the way that I'm moving forward. It does 3 things at once. It holds you accountable to actually applying what you received. It tells the person who gave the feedback that their investment in you was worthwhile. And it makes it far more likely that they will continue to be honest with you in the future. The follow-through loop is what turns a single feedback conversation into an ongoing coaching relationship. And ongoing coaching relationships are some of the most valuable things a growing person can have. The most successful people in every field are not always the most talented. They're often simply the most coachable because coachability is the multiplier that takes whatever you already have and keeps compounding it. So before we close, here are a few questions I want you to spend a little time with. Grab a journal. If you have one nearby, a piece of paper, and remember, the goal is not to make yourself feel bad about where you are. It's to get you excited about where you're going. So think of 2 or 3 pieces of feedback you've received recently. For each one, ask yourself honestly, did I receive it? Did I reflect on it? And did I actually let it change something? If yes, celebrate it. If not quite, what is one small step you could take this week to revisit it? So let me give you these questions. On feedback as information. Is there a piece of feedback you have been carrying that you have not quite let all the way in yet? Maybe someone shared something with you, said something to you, and you've just been carrying it. Like you haven't let it all the way in. Like you're still thinking about the fact that they said it, but you're just kind of holding it outside of your brain and your heart, okay? Maybe it was because of how it was delivered or the person who actually said it, or when it arrived. Set the packaging aside for a moment and look at just the contents. Is there something true in it that is worth giving a fair hearing? On the next level, what is the next level that you're genuinely excited about building toward? And what feedback, if you were open enough to fully receive and apply it, might be the exact thing that closes the gap between here and there? Here's what I want you to take away from today more than anything else. Coachability is not a fixed thing. It's not a quality you either have in abundance or are simply lacking. It's a muscle. And like every muscle, it grows when you use it. It strengthens with repetition and it becomes more capable over time than it ever was at the beginning. You are already more coachable than you were before this conversation because awareness is always the first step. You now have language for what coachability looks like. We now know what the 3 markers of coachability are. And now we have something to work toward and something to practice and something to focus on. We understand what it looks like. We know that it's receptivity, reflection, application. We got to receive it, reflect on it, apply it. Receive it, reflect on it, apply it. You have the pause, the curious question, the follow-through loop. You have a more useful frame for what feedback actually is and what it's actually trying to do for you. The next level that you're working toward in your business, in your leadership, your relationships, your own becoming, it's been waiting for you. And one of the things it has been waiting for is the version of you who is open enough, humble enough, and flexible enough to receive what it requires. That version of you is closer than you think, so you've got to keep going. Thank you so much for being here today. Share this episode with someone you care about who is in a growth season because the conversation it might spark between you could be one of the most valuable ones you have this year. Thanks again, as always, for being a part of the incredible Brewing Success community where growth is the mission, change is the reward, and progress is the goal.